So the BioHub is here in San Francisco for JPM. I have the pleasure of being with Adrian Rawcliffe, the CEO of Adaptimmune. They've got some big news to share. It's important these guys are here and had an exceptional 2024. Just talk us through last year.
So, I mean, last year was completely transformational for Adaptimmune because we got our first product approved. So T-Celra for the treatment of patients with advanced synovial sarcoma, approved by the FDA in August, and we started getting that out to patients immediately. And that's the culmination of Adaptimmune's life over the last decade, frankly, and it's the first engineered cell therapy for a solid tumor, so first in class product, the first thing in synovial sarcoma for at least a decade, and so there's just great enthusiasm from the sarcoma docs and the centers and the team, because this is the realization of everything that we've been working for, or at least start off with. So that was the big event last year, and then as we move into next year, it's really about commercial execution. So we're in that sort of lucky period and time when we're becoming a commercial company, which is not something that most biotech companies ever get to do. So we're out there with our commercial organisation, standing up the centres to be able to deliver T-Celra, and 2025 I think we will be delivering incrementally large sales on a quarter by quarter basis as we go through the year, and then coming behind T-Celra, we have lete-cel, which is also a sarcoma product, different target, different patient group, and that's completed its pivotal trial. We did data from that trial at a conference called CETOS in November last year. Great data, and this year we intend to be initiating a rolling BLA. So Q4 2025 we'll have a rolling BLA starting. Anticipate approval of that in 2026, and we just late last week got breakthrough designation from the FDA for myxoid round cell liposarcoma, which is the second type of sarcoma that lete-cel can treat. And so that's really super useful for a couple of reasons. One, it gives us access to a faster review cycle, but just as importantly, in fact, I think more importantly, it enables us to talk to the FDA as we go through the process about what the file is going to look like, what data is required, and make sure that when we actually present the file, submit the file, that it will be acceptable to the FDA, and that therefore the approval can happen on an expedited basis. And so that dialogue with the FDA is the biggest part of these breakthrough designation classifications. So that's what we're looking forward to.
Yeah, massive congratulations on that, by the way.
Thank you.
It must be, I mean, it hasn't always been, I mean, I know it's celebrations now, but then going on to executing the commercial side, but it hasn't always been smooth sailing, and as with anything, but just talk us through some of the challenges and how you overcame them.
So I mean, I think there's a interesting thing when you look at the history of biotech, and you look at these periods of time when new modalities of therapy are coming through, and cell therapy is a new modality of therapy, and cell therapy in solid tumours hasn't really been done before, and so as with all of these things, there's the scientific hurdles to overcome and the challenges, and I think particularly with cell therapy, the focus has been on the ability to actually make the product. And that's where a lot of the companies that have been engaged in cell therapy in the hem-onc space there's been challenges and they've been overcome. One of the things that we've had the advantage of is coming slightly after the people in the hem-onc space with the CAR-Ts, and being able to look at what they've done and learn from their challenges, and try not to repeat them. The overall issue with that, though, is that really the underlying challenge of making cell therapies is that it's a very, very, very complicated process. And so the ability to operationalize that and execute it is one that is sort of hard fought for over long periods of time by companies that can do it. There's lots of opportunities for it to go wrong. The way that it might have gone wrong for somebody else may not be the same way as it goes wrong for you, and there's so many steps. So the underlying thing is actually the inherent complexity of the process. That's why we've been investing in manufacturing for the last 7 years, because that's fundamental. If you can't make the product, then you can have the best data in the world, but you can't deliver it to patients. And so that's been our focus. But it's been a long and interesting haul. But being on the finish line, not with one product, but with 2 products now, is just incredibly gratifying.
Yeah,
so,
to be able to map out those next steps to the finish line, like you say, must be pretty gratifying. And
we're in that transition period. I mean, and really it's testament to all of the people that have worked at Adaptimmune over that long period of time. Also, the rest of the sector. I mean, there's an interesting concept in this space as biotech that you can get convinced into believing that that companies in the cell therapy space, are competition. And to some extent they are competition for talent and they're competition for capital. But the reality is that the competition really comes when you're selling a product. And so most of the companies in our space, they're not selling sarcoma products, so they're not actually really competing with us for patients and for revenue. They're selling melanoma products or CAR T products or in heme-onc setting. And so the rising tide of the cell therapy space really does lift all boats. And much more important than the extent to which we compete with each other is actually the extent to which we problem solve as a sector and as an industry and move the space forward, and ultimately patients will benefit from that when there are multiple cell therapies on the market for a wide range of cancers.
It's actually been fascinating to watch the way cell therapy has come through from this trendy novel concept that everyone was talking about to reality. What else is there to come in cell therapy?
Well, so we think there's been a sort of focus on the challenges that we referred to about autologous therapy, particularly the supply chain challenges, and there has historically been a lot of focus on, well, are there ways of doing cell therapy that avoid those challenges? And those continue. So allogeneic or off-the-shelf T cells, I think there still remains a significant investment in those spaces. We're of the view that allogeneic may well be useful, and there's a concept of doing in vivo cell therapy by editing the cells in a patient. But those are long way away from actually affecting patients' lives in the next few years of decade. Our view is that the next 10 to 15 years, autologous cell therapy is going to be the mainstay of cancer cell therapy. And in that context, there's a lot we can do. And so there's 2 sort of big axes that I think the field's going to evolve on. One is the executions of that manufacturing process, the execution of the supply chain. There is a very long way to go to get to an ideal situation. The costs are too high, the time is too long, and the complexity is still too high as well. But there are lots of companies, a lot of the equipment manufacturers, a lot of the logistics and support people who are working hard with the sector to enable that to happen. And that's important because the key to getting these types of products available on a global basis to markets outside of the US and certain other European markets, the key to that is reducing the cost and complexity so that they can be priced appropriately and patients globally can have access. I don't think these are ever going to be low-cost therapies, but they must be lower cost than they currently are. And so that sort of decomplexification, simplification of that, and the reduction of the cost base for the cost of goods is key. The second piece is that I think we're right on the cusp of the wave of solid tumour cell therapies. And so there's been huge success in the hem-onc space with CAR-Ts. There's 4 billion of sales, 4 billion plus of sales. People say that by the end of this decade, it'll be more like 10 billion of sales from the hem-onc CAR-T space. That's fantastic. And there's patients, and many, many, many patients who are cured and are getting long-term durable benefit from that. It's wonderful. They've completely transformed the treatment of those indications. However, hematological malignancies are about 10% of the total burden of cancer. The remaining 90% is solid tumour. The remaining 90% is more complicated. The targets are different. The things you need to do with the T cells are different to enable long-term sustained anti-tumour activity. And we're just starting to see with Tecelra, with Lete-cel, with the TIL products, the start of very effective cell therapies in the solid tumour space. It's the very, very start. We have base camp for Everest sort of analogy. And I think over the next decade we'll see many, many more cell therapies for many. And what the advantage of that is that what it will do is it will establish cell therapy as a mainstream treatment paradigm for a wide range of cancers. And that will remove this is really novel and I don't quite understand it. Okay, this is standard. This is how we treat a certain type of advanced and maybe not so advanced cancer. So access via getting the cogs down, and then a wider range of products, particularly in the solid tumour space, I see.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. And especially with cell therapy in the market, the passion really rings through from people doing it. You talk about the issues with cost and making it accessible to the average person. It's there's some people with some real drive and mission,
passion to do that.
Absolutely, which is amazing.
Yeah, one of the companies we partnered with, Galapagos, the basis of their desire to invest in cell therapy is a 7-day distributed vein-to-vein time. So at the moment, most of the cell therapies take anywhere from 3 to 4, 5 weeks to turn around, and are mostly done in a centralized approach. And Galapagos have developed a platform into which we're putting our next generation MAGE-A4 targeting product called User-cel in head and neck cancer. We're running a trial that should initiate this year, and the opportunity there is to basically have literally delivery of cells pretty much as fast as a patient would ever want to get treatment. So you could be diagnosed, you could be apheresed, and 7 days later you could have your product back to go into. And the fact that that can be more distributed, has the potential to be more distributed, means that you can get to places where at the moment the access would be difficult. And so because it won't be done in a centralized facility like autologous is done now. So I think there's an awful lot of passion there. I think one of the things that struck me when I joined Adaptimmune was just how personal the business of making a cell therapy for patients is. Because when you make a large batch of pills, you're basically manufacturing a fine chemical and you're putting in a tablet, and that's really important. The quality around it's really important, and the sense of pride and the acknowledgement that product is critical to that patient's life and to the safety. That's all there. But it can be easy to become divorced from that but in the cell therapy, the patient cells come from the patient. They come into our manufacturing facility, and a guy or a girl in our manufacturing facility picks up the bag with the patient cells and manipulates those cells, and then we send them back to that patient. And that produces a connection that is difficult to explain, but is very, very real. And I think what that means is that we feel as a cell therapy company that we have a connection with the patients that goes beyond the fact that we've developed this drug and got it approved and got it into a pharmacy, because we actually get to see that patient cells. A bit of that patient comes into our facility and then goes back, and it's a sort of amazing thing. It's unique to this space.
I think that's amazing. I think That's so important, just for the motivation behind what you're doing as well. You know,
Yeah.
I think sometimes, like, you know, some of the rare disease companies might have, because they don't know anyone close to them that may have suffered from that, and you know, in your case, that you know, everyone's had someone who's suffered from cancer. Then even the connect like that is amazing.
It's really cool. Yeah.
But look, thanks so much for coming on.
Pleasure.
Enjoy the rest of JPM.
You too.
And good luck.
Thank you. Fantastic.
Thanks, Adrian.
Enjoy the wonderful weather.
Yeah, it's good this year.
Take care.